Okay, just a quick note. I've been seeing a lot of people publish videos about Martin Luther King, and I hate to say it, in this day and time, upwards of 80 to 90% are very ignorant. I was lucky to know a woman named Carol Hubbard Hollins, and I remember in the 1980s her grandson came home and we were at the kitchen table and he announced proudly, "I don't have to go to school on Monday because it's Martin Luther King Day." And she said, "Well, first off, young man, you don't tell me in my home what you can and cannot do. And secondly, why do you suppose you don't have to go to school on Monday?" And he said, "Well, it's Martin Luther King Day, and we were given the option to go to school or celebrate that day." And she said, "Okay, here's your education in a nutshell. Martin Luther King was not murdered so that you could sit home and stay home from school. Martin Luther King was murdered in the eyes of the world because he wanted us to live up to the highest expressions of the Constitution and the equality of all men under the eyes of God. So you will not be staying home on Monday. Martin Luther King died or was murdered. I like it that she kept saying murdered, so that you could attend all schools equally." And so I like that. I liked it that she also said, "You will not take any form of welfare from the state." She was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I grew up in that era. I saw the marches. I saw that three small female black children were burned inside of a church because that church had Martin Luther King scheduled to speak in that church. It's time for people to get some intellectual repair and do the real studies. Martin Luther King's whole stance was that the Constitution, in the whole history of humankind, was and is the greatest document ever written for the full expression of equality of the human race, the whole of the human race. And he understood divide and conquer very well. We as a human race had better mature up. Stop looking to our agenda based education, financed through the federal government, backed by a private bank called the Federal Reserve, and do the research ourselves. And so, with that, I just leave it at that. So many people generalize the entire black community and race, and I was born in the South. There is such prejudice against all people of the South, and that was perpetrated by the North to keep us under control. They formed a prison, and people want to just say our fight, our Civil War was about slavery. That is such a mind control, agenda based education. It's not to be believed. There is so much more to it than that. So much more. Um, I just wanted to throw that out there, a caveat. Please educate yourself. Please stop slandering him. All men of power and position are womanizers to a certain extent. There are very few, except for a gentleman I'm very enthralled with right now and studying. His name is Dr. Ron Paul. I did a review of his voting record and his service to our country, both in the military and in the civil service. And he served our country well on more than 30 years. And he has always served in the laws of the Constitution. His voting record in Congress and the Senate shows he always votes constitutionally. What's important about that is constitutionally it's for we the people, not the federal, centralized, totalitarian government. Everything the government has perpetrated since 19, I believe 1913, when the Federal Reserve, a private bank, took over, has been unlawful and foisted on the people of the United States through the guise of law. The guise of which law? Maritime ownership law and equity codes. Go and do some research on that. See that your birth certificate was created by a federal department. Now that's interesting that we have governmental departments and we have federal departments. Why is that? Because after the Federal Reserve Bank took over, a private bank, they started setting into place departments to help them dismantle our form of republic government. And there's so many people that are ignorant of that. But Martin Luther King was not ignorant to that. And that's what made him very dangerous. It's what made uh, John F. Kennedy dangerous. And his brother, they knew the Constitution. They knew common law. They knew habeas corpus. They also knew that this was going to be a battle for freedom sooner or later. And let me tell you something. If you want to stay in this agenda-based, low-based, intellectual matrix, fine by me, but please stop spewing your ignorance over the internet. It's just horrible. Your disdain for a man that actually stood for the equality of all races, not just his own. He saw this was an opportunity to raise up the intellectual spirit of all humanity. So, Martin Luther King was not murdered so you could stay home from school. He was murdered like a dog so that you could go to any school that you qualified for. That you qualified for. That means you have to do the work. You don't get special dispensation. Martin Luther King did not want special dispensation. Most of the movement after his death sold out to the establishment. That's where you get all these new laws and on applications, what's your creed, what's your color. All of those are discriminating. What are your qualifications? You also should check out Mrs. Iserby's The Dumbing Down of America. This is a woman who comes from an elite education, who worked inside the government, and her insights and truths about how all of these laws, so-called for equality, did so much damage, not only to the black race in America, but all ethnic groups and a majority of the white population. When are we going to wake up and realize it's about divide, conquer, and control? So please stop putting out idiotic videos about Martin Luther King. Please. It's insulting. And now, I just want to try to end the video, and now it doesn't want me to end it, and it's gone on for 8 minutes.